You may have already heard this story before. It was a dark, stormy night, or it might have been a dark, moonlit night, or possibly it was sunset and not that dark. It took place in an abandoned house in a decrepit neighborhood, or it might have occurred in a small country home, or maybe it happened in a large Gothic mansion. A small young child was murdered, or it could have been an old lady or a newlywed couple who were brutally slaughtered. Their murder was never solved, and now their ghost roams their home, wanting to contact the living in order to solve their murder, or to wreak havoc on anyone who shows up at the house, or they may want to possess someone and make them go on a killing spree. So, where did haunted house stories start? The earliest surviving report of a haunted house comes from a letter written by Pliny the Younger in 112 CE, in which he describes a haunted villa in Athens. He wrote that nobody would live in a certain house until the philosopher Athenodorus arrived in the city. He was tempted by the low rent and undeterred by the house's haunted reputation, so he moved in. The ghost, an old man bound in chains, appeared during that first night and called to him. The apparition vanished, and Athenodorus marked the spot in the courtyard where he disappeared. The following morning, he requested the magistrate to have the spot dug up, where the skeleton of an old man bound with chains was discovered. The ghost never appeared again after the skeleton was given a proper burial. And these types of stories are universal. Haus Fulhing is one of Germany's most haunted houses, built in 1884 in the spot where the Battle of Warringen took place in 1288. This battle is now considered to be one of the largest and most devastating battles in the Middle Ages. Over 1,000 soldiers died and hundreds were buried there. Owner after owner of this property suffered financial losses, suicides, and untimely deaths. The house was shut down in 2000, and even though it was now completely abandoned, a body was discovered inside in 2007. The person was believed to have committed suicide. In Hong Kong, the Tat Tak School was a public primary school, founded in 1931 to educate children in the villages, which is now abandoned and surrounded by graves, and has become the most haunted school in the city. In 1899, British troops entered that city, and during a 6-day war, 500 Chinese villagers were killed. In 1941, Japanese troops killed numerous people and turned the site into a mass grave during the occupation. One of the most infamous ghost stories about that school is the rumored death of the headmistress, who wore a red dress and committed suicide by hanging in one of the bathroom stalls. And her ghost is said to now haunt that school. In 2011, a group of young girls visited the site and heard mysterious whispers and saw a woman dressed in red. Some of the girls fainted, and others became hysterical. One of them claimed to have visions of people dying horrible deaths. Vorgerd Castle in Sweden was built in 1520. Ingeborg Skeel was the matriarch of the house, and she reigned with an iron fist. Legend has it that she drowned the house architect so she didn't have to pay him, chopped off the fingers of children who stole grains from her fields, and whipped her own child to death. She is said to have haunted the place, and priests were brought in to exorcise her ghost more than once. Why do these stories happen all over the world in every culture and every generation? There's this thing called the sensed presence effect, also known as felt presence. It's when the brain creates the sense that someone is present when there's no evidence that they are. This evidence can range from a vague suspicion to a strong feeling of conviction. It can include a feeling that someone is nearby, along a trail, around a corner, or in another room. It's known to happen when people experience monotony, darkness, cold, hunger, fatigue, fear, and sleep deprivation. Then there's the haunted house syndrome. Chronic exposure to substances like carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, and pesticides can cause hallucinations similar to those associated with haunted houses. Some think that it could explain the haunted house experienced by Victorians who were poisoned by arsenic-laced wallpaper and gasoline lamps. Carbon monoxide poisoning has been linked to haunted houses since at least the 1920s. Some research has shown that people are more likely to believe in something if they are primed. This is a psychological term for when the introduction of a stimulus influences a subsequent stimulus. In some experiments, two groups of people were taken on a tour of an old abandoned building. One group was told stories about how that place may be haunted, and one was only told about the history and architecture of the place. The group that was first told the ghost stories had people that claimed to have seen or felt a supernatural presence, while the other group did not. So is all this just superstition that has no real life importance? There was a court case called Stambovsky versus Ackley in 1991. The Supreme Court of New York ruled that a seller must disclose that a house has a reputation for being haunted because such a reputation may impair the value of the house. In Hong Kong, with homes that are thought to be haunted, the prices are usually 20% below market value. And haunted house stories are so popular, they have become a business that generates between $300 and $500 million a year. Halloween-themed haunted houses began appearing around the same time as trick-or-treating, which was encouraged during the Great Depression as a way to distract young people whose Halloween pranks had escalated to vandalism and harassment of people. During COVID-19 in 2020, Indonesian lawmakers in the Sragen region of the island of Java decided to lock people in designated abandoned homes and equip them with beds to hold quarantine breakers, specifically asking for the creepiest, most haunted looking houses available. Anyone who defied the order by returning to Sragen and refusing to quarantine would be sent to one of these homes, hoping that the threat of being locked away in a haunted house would get people to comply with lockdown orders. Another Indonesian village in central Java made headlines for employing volunteers dressed as ghosts to frighten quarantine violators into staying home. The strategy, which was endorsed by local police, was deemed effective because it took advantage of Indonesians' penchant for the mystical. And I'm not picking on Indonesia here. There were quite a few fear-style stories that were told to try and get people to comply with COVID rules that were effective, but later proved to be untrue and sometimes more harmful than the disease. But plague doctor masks became popular for a few Halloweens. So maybe haunted houses are real. And there are ghosts, revenants, apparitions, and spirits that haunt those places. Maybe these scary tales were told to children in order to warn them about going into certain places because there really are dangerous people or situations that can harm them. Or maybe it's just all superstitious fun. Whatever it is, I love these haunted places, along with the stories, ghost hunting, and jump scares that come with them. Good night.